So we have to give it to them.
I'll try not to make it.
So
This week.
I,
I'm just scared.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to tonight's special meeting of the Casa Grande City Council of December 7th, 2020. And I hope I never say 2020 again. So we'll call this meeting in order. Let the roll call show that we do have 2 people absent this evening. Would someone like to offer a...
I move to excuse Mary Corson and Dick Powell from the meeting this evening.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Please note they are excused but absent. Okay, minutes. I know Mr. Powell normally does that, but would you like to, Bob?
Yes. Mayor McFarland, I would like to move to approve the city council regular minutes of November 16th, 2020.
Second?
All right, it's been moved and seconded to approve the November 16th city council minutes. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, the minutes are approved. Next item is item D, claims of November 11th through December 1st.
Mayor McFarland, I move to accept and pay the claims dated November 11th to December 1st, 2020 as presented.
Second.
All right, moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the claims are approved. The meeting agenda approval. Larry, do we have any changes on the meeting agenda? I think we did have one, didn't we? No.
Mayor, we're gonna move the special presentations down to, just after the item I, or just before J.
All right, so we're going to move,
Move to approve the meeting agenda as amended, moving F1 down to right before item J.
Second.
if I can get a pen that works.
Have an extra pen?
Okay. So F1 is going to, sorry about that. You've put this on 2 sides of the paper.
Mess tonight.
And I'm sorry, where are we going to put it? J. Okay. All right, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? That was an aye for me, too. Okay. So then we'll skip over F, since it just got moved, and we'll move to the consent agenda item. All items listed with an asterisk are considered routine matters and will be enacted by one motion and one roll call vote of the council. There will be no further or separate discussion of these items unless a council member or member of the public so requests, in which event the item will be removed from the consent agenda and considered in its normal sequence. Does anybody have anything you want to change, remove, or pull off?
Mayor McFarland, I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Gloria, can I please get a roll call vote?
Councilmember Huddleston.
Yes.
Councilmember McBride.
Yes.
Councilmember Herman.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Fitzgibbons.
Yes.
Mayor McFarland.
Yes. All right, the next item is the boards and commissions. H1 is consider the approval and appointment of Tom Krob to the Police Advisory Board with the term to expire on February 20th, 2023. Yeah, I don't see him here, so, but I do want to thank him for his service. In fact, he's also up for a reappointment on the Airport Advisory Board. But let's take item H1. Does anybody have any questions or comments on it? All right, then I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
All right, so moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Thank you to Tom. H2, consider approving appointment of Tom also to the Airport Advisory Board and term to expire September 8th of 2023. And we also need to approve a waiver for the number of committee membership rule. In other words, he's on 2 committees, so can we do this all at the same time?
You can.
Okay.
Mayor McFarland, I would move that we approve the appointment of Tom Krob to the Airport Advisory Board and approve a waiver for the number of committees he's serving on.
Second?
All right, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, thank you. H3, consider the appointment of Brent Bedillen to the Board of Adjustments with a term to expire on November 17th, 2023.
Mayor McFarland, I move to approve the appointment of Brent Bedillen to the Board of Adjustment.
Second?
All right, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right. Before we move on, I just want to thank both these gentlemen for their service. It is appreciated. And again, we can't really do what we do in the city in terms of its boards and commissions without volunteers. So we do appreciate them very much. Next item is award of contract is I-1. Consider ordinance number 3245. And we've seen this before.
Only the names have changed to protect whatever.
But we like the change, so it's okay.
Thank you. Staff is recommending that the mayor and city council authorize the city manager to execute a contract with Ellison Mills Contracting of Casa Grande, Arizona, with a total bid amount of $1,018,826, plus a owner's contingency of $118,000, for a total amount not to exceed $1,136,826. As City Council will recall, this item was tabled at the last meeting. Council was desirous for staff to look for opportunities to find a way to award to our local contractor, because the difference between the bid that was submitted by Vices Engineering was so close to our local contractor that we just needed to take a look at that. As we were doing that evaluation, we took a closer look at the bids that were submitted, and we found an error in the Vices bid. We did meet and contact and have a conversation with Vices, and they did acknowledge that error and basically said, I guess your city council gets what they want this time. So I was really impressed with Vices' reaction to what we uncovered. It was their mistake, but looking forward to an opportunity to work with that company in the future, just because of the character they used during this event. But we do get to make this recommendation to have Ellison Mills, our local contractor, do the pier widening project, and that's from O'Neill Drive to Cottonwood Lane. I'd be happy to answer any questions or provide any additional information if you'd like. Otherwise, I'll stand for questions.
Matt?
Just want to make a comment. Thank you to the staff. I kind of started this last time, and sorry I didn't give you more of a heads up, but I appreciate it. There's nothing, again, against Vices, and usually we have that 2%, and then Brett educated me. Thank you, Brett, on it's sales tax, not construction sales tax. So that's where the confusion, and I got a good email. I think we all got it from Brett, refreshing our memory on the policy. So thank you, and we do have these policies in place, and this time it was just kind of a stroke of luck, but thank you guys very much.
Anyone else have any questions? Thank you, Kevin. All right, then I'll consider an ordinance number, please. Gloria?
Ordinance number 3245, an ordinance of the council of the city of Casa Grande, Arizona, accepting a bid from Ellis Mills Contracting LLC to provide the Peart Road widening and improvement project from Cottonwood Lane to O'Neill Drive, authorizing expenditure of public funds and authorizing the execution of a contract.
Mayor McFarland, I move for approval of ordinance number 3245 as presented.
Second?
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Gloria, can I please get a roll call vote?
Councilmember Huddleston.
Yes.
Councilmember McBride.
Yes.
Councilmember Herman.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Fitzgibbons.
Yes.
Mayor McFarland.
Yes. Meeting goes fast when you're missing two people, doesn't it? Okay. Well, then we have item F, which we moved to this position. So I just want to say a couple things. First of all, this is Mary Cortson's last meeting, and unfortunately, she was in contact with someone this weekend that tested positive. So she, in overdue cautiousness, decided not to attend, which I appreciate her being considerate that way. And so we are going to kind of show our appreciation on the 21st of December. So we're gonna put that off for a couple weeks, and so we'll save the plaque that we have for her, and we'll do that on the 21st. And plus, I know that Donna and the council and the city staff has some presentation that we're also going to give her at that point in time. So the next item then on the special presentations is a big thank you also to my Mayor Pro Tem, Lisa Fitzgibbons, for her last year in service and filling in when I couldn't be there. So I really appreciate it, Lisa. Thank you very much. You always attend when I ask you, and I appreciate that. So thank you. And then we have a plaque. Do we want to can we get a picture, do you think? Is there somebody who could take a photo?
I can take a photo there.
Okay, you want?
Put the mask on?
Yeah, probably. Probably be on the safe side.
Just from here?
Well, we can go down front. Is that down front okay?
I guess.
Come on,
I
Lisa,
know.
let's,
We-
as
we
normal
have-
as
we have
possible.
45 minutes.
So, in appreciation to Lisa Fitzgibbons for her dedicated service as Casa Grande City Mayor Pro Tem, December 2nd, 2019 to December 7th, 2020. Thank you, Lisa. Can you see my smile?
I know,
Supposed to
right?
say cheese.
Thank you.
I say cheese.
Thank you.
Do you want to say anything? Okay. Well, we all go get dinner now. All right, I think the next item on this agenda is to adjourn sine die. So I don't need a motion or anything, right? We'll adjourn sine die till we see you at 7 o'clock. Thank you, everybody.
I hope nothing happens.
Welcome, everyone. Welcome to tonight's council meeting, December 7th, City of Casa Grande. First item on the agenda tonight is our, I'll call the meeting to order, but the invocation. And I think is Father Peter here? Oh, he's hiding behind the guy. There you go. Father, if you would like to lead us in the invocation, and then please remain standing, and we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you.
The scripture proclaims, "For the Lord gives wisdom, from his mouth comes knowledge and understanding. He has success in store for the upright, is the shield of those who walk honestly, guarding the paths of justice, protecting the way of his faithful ones. Then you will understand what is right and just, what is fair, every good path." Father in heaven, you are the source of life and the force that guides the world. As we prepare our hearts to celebrate the holidays and to welcome you in our hearts, we ask you to give us wisdom so that we are able to hear clearly without bias and prejudice what others are saying. Give us courage to understand what the people around us aim, even though it differs from our own perspectives. Give us prudence to help us see the common good for everyone. Give us justice, and let what is just drive us to serve your people. Give us temperance to accept the things that are true, even though it is difficult for us. Give us fortitude that we may continue to serve your people unceasingly, especially in this time that we face the challenges of COVID-19. Give us humility to recognize that we are called to serve and not to be served. Give us your peace so that we may become symbols of unity and the face of resiliency to the people we serve. Remind us, Father, like you reminded Noah, Moses, Abraham, and your chosen people Israel, that whatever name we call you, you are there guiding us, especially in the dark moments of history and time. Remind us, like you reminded Tamar, Ruth, and the wife of Uriah, that all of us are called to serve, and all of us are instruments to bring peace and love to our nation, regardless of our background and or origin. Give us, Father, the graces that we need. Make us instruments of yours. Remind us of your love, and allow us to love you back. All of these we pray and offer to your most powerful name. Amen.
Amen. Bob, would you mind leading us in the pledge?
Of course, please join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Father. Thank you, Bob. All right, well, tonight's meeting is a little bit different in that we actually have a new council to swear in tonight. So we have four new council members, technically, myself included in that. And so I think the first item on the agenda tonight is the swearing in of the newly elected mayor, and that would be me. So I'll go first, and then we'll have the swearing in of the council, and then we'll actually then decide on our next Casa Grande, who is also related to one of our council members. So it's kind of a unique situation where we get to ask one of our local judges, to swear in the council tonight. So that's why we're using Mr. Michael McBride. Judge McBride, thank you for being here tonight. And so we'll get this on the road.
I state your name.
I, Craig McFarland,
Do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America.
do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America
And the laws of the state of Arizona.
and the laws of the state of Arizona,
That I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same.
that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same,
And defend them against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
and defend them against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
And that I will faithfully and impartially discharge the duties of mayor for the city of Casa Grande.
And that will
Faithfully
faithfully and impartially
discharge
discharge the duties of the mayor of the city of Casa Grande,
according to the best of my abilities, so help me.
according to the best of my abilities, so help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
You're the mayor for 2 more years.
Next, I think we have the council, new council members. Mr. Lavender, Mrs. McBride, Mrs. Fitzgibbons.
All right, if I get you all to raise your right hand. Repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Lisa Fitzgibbons,
Do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America
solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America
and the laws of the state of Arizona,
and the laws of the state of Arizona,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same,
and defend them against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
and defend them against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
that I will faithfully and impartially discharge the duties of council member for the city of Casa Grande,
that I will faithfully and
impartially discharge the duties
discharge the duties
It's tough when you're,
city council
of city council
for the city of
of the
Casa
city
Grande,
of Casa Grande,
there you go.
according to the best of my ability, so help me.
according to the best of my abilities, so help me God.
Congratulations, all of you.
Thank you.
Well, congratulations, and welcome to our newest member, Mr. Lavender. So the next item actually is the, consider the election of the mayor pro tem. So we'll entertain a motion to,
Mayor McFarland,
Elect.
I would like to nominate Councilman Bob Huddleston for the office of Mayor Pro Tem for this year.
all right, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Congratulations, Bob.
Thank you.
You're now officially Mayor Pro Tem.
Okay.
Now, we also have a swearing in then of the Mayor Pro Tem, so Bob, if you would. He's going to cheat. He's going to use a piece of paper, though. He showed me. Yeah, he planned ahead.
Well, Mayor, I have to tell you, me and Mike have been best friends since junior high. We grew up here in Casa Grande. This was the high school cafeteria. And anyway, so my best buddy, he bailed me out. He gave me a copy.
And there's absolutely no one in this city who would have believed 45 years ago that this would
You
have,
two would be standing there?
maybe they thought we would be working in the cafeteria here, but never in these positions.
That's awesome.
Are you ready for it, Bob?
Yes.
I state your name.
I, Bob Huddleston,
Do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America
do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America
and the laws of the state of Arizona,
and the laws of the state of Arizona,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same
that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same,
and defend them against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
and defend them against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
and that I will faithfully and impartially discharge the duties of Mayor Pro Tempore for the city of Casa Grande,
and that I will faithfully and impartially discharge the duties of Mayor Pro Tem for the city of Casa Grande,
according to the best of my abilities, so help me.
according to the best of my abilities, so help me God.
Congratulations, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Judge McBride, and congratulations, Bob.
Thank you.
All right, next item on the agenda is a roll call. So for the new council, let the roll call show that everyone is present except for Mr. Powell. I'll entertain a motion to give him an excuse.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, please note that Mr. Powell has an excused absence. And then to the city of Casa Grande, this is your new council, so congratulations, everybody. I do want to give one shout out to my wife. Nancy's here, so thank you, babe, for being here. And she puts up with a lot, so I just want to say thank you. All right, we have no minutes, have no claims, since we took care of that in the last meeting. Meeting agenda approval. We are going to move the executive session, which is M1, to follow K2. Unless we get through this before 7:30, and then we will consider the public hearings in the order which that was originally presented. Go ahead.
Actually, the executive session will come after or coincide with K1. Go ahead, Brent.
It's actually part of K2, but if you use executive session, it would take part, we had it set for appoint the city judge and set the compensation, so it would be on item K2.
Okay, so it'd be part of K2.
Right.
Okay. Any other changes that anyone has? Staff, anybody? Council members? Okay, seeing none, then I'll entertain a motion to approve as amended.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the agenda as presented. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the agenda has been approved. We have no special presentations, no consent agenda items. We have suspended public comments due to the COVID and emergency situation. And next item is item I1, which is consider an ordinance number 3246. It's an award of a contract. Mr. Kevin?
Thank you. Staff recommends that the mayor and city council approve an agreement with the state of Arizona acting through the Department of Transportation to allow them to acquire $360,000 in federal funds for the installation of a pedestrian hybrid beacon on Cottonwood Lane at Cadota Avenue. There are no city matching funds required for this. It is 100% covered by funds from ADOT, with one exception. If there are any cost overruns with the project, the city would be responsible for those cost overruns. This is very similar to a project that that ADOT did on Florence Boulevard out by Siegel Suites, and then also the pedestrian hybrid signal on Pinal Avenue by the middle school. The project will be conducted the same way. ADOT will basically manage the project. We as a city really don't have a lot of involvement in this, other than to watch for those overruns, and if that does happen, we'll see if we can cover it within our spending authority, or if it does need to come back to council, we'll get that action in front of council as quickly as we can. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, go ahead, Mary.
Kevin, I was just wondering, well, first of all, I'm really excited to see this coming in. I drive that road every day to work, and there's so many times I see someone that's almost in that crosswalk, and if I stop, people are flying by me. And it happens time and time, over and over again. So I'm really happy, but I wanted to see what you think the timeframes. Do you have any idea when we expect to see this in?
So the last time we received approval and then gave ADOT the go-ahead to move forward with the project, it was about 6 months before they completed the project.
And it's the same on Florence, so, people are going to press it, and that's the only
Correct.
time it'll come
It will
on.
perform just like the ones on Florence, as well as the one on Pinal.
Perfect. Okay.
Thank you, Lisa. Donna?
Just a comment. My only concern about this, and I think that we're really lucky to have this, but when we talked about the cost overruns and the city's responsibility, so what you're saying any overruns will come back to us before the cost is incurred?
Yeah, if it's under $25,000, we can authorize that spending, but if it's over 25, we would bring that back to city council.
Go ahead.
Just one comment. The one on Treckle is a little bit different than these kind. These are the ones with the overhead, right?
Correct, yeah. One is more like a traffic signal versus just a cautionary in-pavement flashing and the advanced warning flashing lights.
I actually got an email this week from a concerned citizen about the one on Treckle, about people rushing through it. So I don't know if there's anything, it's a good time to bring it up. I think I can bring it up right now. But, just if you can help with that, or maybe we can talk about it after, but.
We can absolutely take a look
Yeah.
at that.
He's just concerned that people don't see it because these other ones are so visible with the overhead lights. But I'm a big fan of these, by the way. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? All right, seeing none, thank you, Kevin. Seeing none, we'll consider an ordinance number, please, Gloria.
Ordinance number 3246, an ordinance of the council of the city of Casa Grande, Arizona, authorizing the execution of an intergovernmental agreement between the state of Arizona by and through the Arizona Department of Transportation and the city of Casa Grande for the purpose of acquiring funds from the Federal Highway Administration for pedestrian safety improvements on Cottonwood Lane and Cadota Avenue, and authorizing the expenditure of public funds.
Mayor McFarland, I would move for the approval of ordinance 3246 as presented.
Second?
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Gloria, can I please get a roll call vote?
Councilmember Lavender.
Yes.
Councilmember McBride.
Yes.
Councilmember Fitzgibbons.
Yes.
Councilmember Herman.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Huddleston.
Yes.
Mayor McFarland.
Yes. All right, so the next item actually is K. So do we want to move the, in fact, I will take the mayor's prerogative and we'll move item L1 up in the agenda tonight. As long as Mary Ellen can get these done before 7:30, then you can get out of here.
It'll be lightning speed. So, the first thing we have, Stephen, I don't know how to run this thing. Oh, right, okay. So the first thing we have is, staff recommends the approval of the program year 2019 Community
Can you
Development
turn our
Block.
screens on, though?
Yeah, just push the little button there.
No, it's not, just not on. Pardon me, sorry. Operator error.
Are we good?
Yes, good, good.
So staff recommends approval of the program year 2019 Community Development Block Grant Consolidated Annual Performance Evaluation Report. We had the report out for public comment from 10/28 to 11/12. We did not receive any comments back. But I wanted to highlight just a few of the things that we have accomplished this year. So, as you know, we have public services that we're able to give out 15% of our CDBG grant allocation. So this year, we had Seeds of Hope. They do a Senior Connections program every afternoon at the Amando Anaya Center, in the morning, the Amando Anaya Center. So they have approximately 30 seniors that attend on a regular basis. That's Monday through Friday from about 8 to noon. We also awarded Against Abuse advocacy services for victims of homeless women and children, and they served about 50 women and children. The Casa Grande Police Department, we have the Southside Crime Prevention Education Program. We'd served about 100 local residents. Unfortunately, with COVID, that affected a lot of our community outreach that the police department was trying to do in the downtown area. CARA, they served 40 clients and 17 families. This is with rental assistance and rental deposits and utility assistance. And then our Public Works Department completed portion of the project downtown, the sidewalk project. That one was, they completed the sidewalk project from Nutt Park to Elliott Park, and they also put in ADA ramps at several of the locations down there. They used a lot of internal staff, so they have some extra funding, so it's gonna carry over. So we're gonna complete some more sidewalks down there that are not there currently. And then also, I don't know if you've been down to see Elliott Park improvements, but we have done the Ramada, the playground equipment, sidewalks in the park, the parking lot. And we spent $90,000, but we also had $30,000 from Auction Indian Community that helped pay for some of the shade Ramada. So it would help if I did this right. And then for the community development for housing and neighborhood improvements, we had owner-occupied housing administration. We did $128,300 and assisted 5 homeowners with owner-occupied housing rehab in conjunction with the home funds that we receive. And then also we had a new program this year. It was the planning and development for code enforcement. So that paid for a new code enforcement officer for the west side. And we didn't really know what our goal was going to be, but we put in maybe 1,000 citations, and they've exceeded that with 1,595 code violations. And then, of course, we have our community development staff is $102,000. And then future projects is we have, like I mentioned before, we're going to continue doing some sidewalk projects and improvements down on the south side. And then also we still have the Cottonwood Gardens streetlight project in the Cottonwood Gardens neighborhood. And we're looking at doing solar lights now. They've changed their scope of work to include some solar lights over there. So we should be getting started in that in the next couple of months. So, any questions?
Anyone have any questions?
Just
Yeah,
a
go ahead, Bob.
comment on the Elliott Park improvements, how impressive. Really has made a difference in that park down there, and I'm sure the residents appreciate it greatly.
Yeah, we were really hoping to do like a ribbon cutting event in the spring when it finished. And unfortunately with COVID, we were unable to do that. And then Rod Wood, our superintendent, retired. So he's actually the one we need to give a lot of kudos to
Okay,
for finishing that.
thank you.
Go ahead.
On the code
Lisa?
enforcement piece, I know that's really made a difference, for sure. And of course, we had the one code enforcement officer, and she left, and we have a new one. But is it going, they've done such a great job. Are they carrying over to other areas of town, or is it just that area? And is he pretty much keeping busy in that area?
So originally, well, it has to be low to moderate income in neighborhoods, and we do that by census tracts. So the focus was the west side, but with the new allocation that you guys funded this year, he's reached out to the other east side and south side.
How are we feeling with numbers? I mean, because it seems as though there was such a shortage of staff to go into some of the complaints, and do we feel that we're getting a little better with this extra person?
Absolutely making great strides with the additional code enforcement officer, the third officer. I think code enforcement is one of those services that we provide that ultimately is consistently lacking in resources. If we had 5 more code enforcement officers, we could probably keep them busy. But we can certainly give the mayor and council an update of the numbers, the actual numbers that are being processed by each of those officers in the near term.
Good.
All right. Thank you, Mary. So we'll entertain a resolution for this item L1,
Mayor,
please.
this is scheduled for a
Oh, it is a
public
public,
hearing tonight.
public hearing, isn't it? All right, so then I'll open the floor for public comment. Is there anyone here who would like to speak on item L1? right, seeing none, then I'll close the floor and we will call for a resolution, please.
Mayor McFarland, I move to approve resolution number 526.
Oh, she's got to give us the
Oh,
resolution
you haven't
first.
read it yet. Sorry, Gloria.
You're ahead of the game.
Resolution number 5269, a resolution of the mayor and council of the city of Casa Grande, Arizona, approving the program year 2019 Community Development Block Grant Consolidated Annual Performance Evaluation Report.
Now, Mayor
Go ahead,
McFarland,
Lisa.
I move to approve resolution number 5269 as presented.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Can I please get a roll call vote?
Councilmember Lavender.
Yes.
Councilmember McBride.
Yes.
Councilmember Fitzgibbons.
Yes.
Councilmember Herman.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Huddleston.
Yes.
Mayor McFarland.
Yes. All right, item L2. Back to you.
It's back to me again. So, Mayor and Council, we would like to recommend that Mayor and Council adopt the amended 2020 to 2024 Consolidated Plan and Annual Action Plan to include an additional $361,737 CARES funding. The city will receive the additional money authorized by the Cronus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act. This allocation is used to prevent, prepare for, and respond to coronavirus, COVID-19. The amended public participation plan allowed for a 5-day public comment period and 1 public hearing. The public comment was available online and in our office from November 30th through December 4th for any comments. We did not receive any. We are recommending that 5 program activities be recommended for funding. For public services, the HUD has waived the 15% cap that we can give to public services. So we were looking to recommend Casa Grande Homeless Services by Community Action Human Resource Agency for $50,000. That will fund a full-time case manager for the CG Helps location. So it will be dedicated only for Casa Grande, which is huge for CARA because they're countywide and have
That's
to
great.
travel. We're also recommending food insecurities, the hot lunch program, the food bank distribution by Seeds of Hope for $43,537. They are working in collaboration with the Casa Grande Food Bank, St. Vincent de Paul, the hot lunch program that Seeds of Hope also runs, and also a Mondo Anaya Center. Included in there are some funding for some equipment and supplies for the food bank and for St. Vincent de Paul. They, St. Vincent de Paul had a freezer that they were using, more of a residential freezer, so we want to purchase a commercial size for them, so they can keep the food and then distribute it. They're hoping to distribute 3 days a week, and they have between the organizations, they have a plan as to how to distribute the food, so they're keeping track of who's receiving and how often they're receiving it. Third, we have the senior meal enhancements for the Dorothy Powell Senior Center. Since they have had to do a new business operation model, more of it is home-delivered meals right now instead of congregate meals, so they were in need of some heat compartment transportation equipment for the vans, so that was parted in there. And then also some additional funding for some part-time staff. The City of Casa Grande, the Finance Department, we are looking to fund kiosk for payments that can be made throughout the city. We're looking at city locations. That way, the foot traffic in the Finance Department will be lessened, and there'll be more opportunities for people to come in and pay at different locations. Still working out all the details as to what the locations will look like, but definitely here in City Hall and Finance, they're looking for an outdoor kiosk. So it'll be used for people for after hours. Also with Against Abuse, we're recommending $43,200 for short-term rental and transitional housing services. Currently, obviously, they have their homeless shelter. They're trying to, instead of having it full capacity, trying to get people out into rental facilities, so that way they're lessening how many people are in the shelter. So to keep people safe and healthy. And then also we're looking to add an additional part-time staff to our office to help with all of these additional funding.
All the additional paperwork? Okay. Anybody have any questions or comments on that?
She just answered mine.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, how are you gonna do all that?
Yeah.
Thank you.
I have a
Sure, go ahead, Bob.
question. Mary, how did we come up with this list? And I guess my question is going to include, what is the mission of this particular grant? And I'll be blunt, the reason why I'm asking, I love 4 of those items that we're looking to fund. The city kiosks seem to be a little out of place with that group. And so ultimately, my question is, how does the kiosks fit the mission of this grant?
I think it's to prevent all of the foot traffic that's coming into the city facility to pay their bills. And currently, yes, they can go online, but a lot of our residents don't have a computer. So this would just allow them to come in. And their finance is looking to expand it, so they can not only just pay their sewer and trash, but they're looking at how to implement paying other fees, animal
Okay.
license tags, and
So the objective of the kiosks is to limit the amount of foot traffic in and out of the building, so therefore limiting face-to-face contact
Correct.
with customers and, okay. Okay, thank you.
Matt?
Well, I share some of that concern because it stuck out to me too. That's triple of all the other spending on there for each item. There's also kiosks at Circle K and stuff that is already in use where people can pay their electricity bills and their water bills. Are we looking at using those instead of standing up our own?
yes, the IT department is looking into all of that. And so part of the cost too on this is the software packages that come along with that, and trying to make sure that our Paymentus that we use for making payments and processing our payments, and the software is compatible.
Interface with those kiosks. And then that will help also people that don't have transportation too in different neighborhoods, right?
Correct.
Is kind of the idea of it as
Correct.
well.
And especially if we did one at the finance department or here at City Hall outdoors, then you could come after hours.
Anyone else have any questions? Okay, thank you, Mary. Then I'll call for a resolution number, please. Or, oops, sorry, public hearing. Should circle that. All right, so I'm going to open the floor for public comments. Does anyone have any comments or statements you want to make on item L2 on tonight's agenda? Okay, seeing none, then I will close the floor and I will call for resolution number, please.
Mayor, can I ask a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
If and maybe this is for Larry or Brett, if the council wanted to amend or change that distribution of the funding, is now the time to do that, or will we have opportunity to do that later? I see that it's a block grant, so my assumption is the total amount, the 361, is formulated for us. But if we wanted to change those numbers in some way,
That was a specific grant that came through the CARES Act. So this is unusual. This is not a normal CDBG grant. This was an additional grant that we got this year. So, and it was supposed to be specifically for CARES or COVID type related programs. But Larry, I'll let you answer his question.
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Huddleston, the mayor is actually 100% correct on this particular grant. It is actually distributed through HUD. It is our Community Development Block Grant. It is actually the second grant that we've received through Community Development Block Grant, specifically through the CARES dollars, that has to be allocated specifically to COVID-19 related incidents. And the council may recall that probably 6-8 months ago, we had a similar distribution, and many of the same entities that we granted money to at that particular time are on this second series of dollars, of allocation of dollars as well. Quite candidly, it's sometimes difficult for us to find organizations that are willing to abide by the CDBG requirements and follow the guidelines that are necessary for this funding. And I can attest that Mr. Weaver and Ms. Allen worked diligently to try to come up with the allocation that's been presented to council tonight. And I know that the kiosk item is something that may sound a little bit unusual for CDBG dollars. I can assure the mayor and council that it is one of the most common uses of the funds today, simply in an effort to try to lessen the amount of traffic that is gathering in one particular location. But to answer your question specifically, Councilmember Huddleston, and I'm going to look at Mary as I make this statement, and she can correct me if I'm wrong. If the mayor and council is wanting to modify any type of allocation, tonight would be the night that you would want to do that.
Will we do it now, or would we table it and ask you to come back with it?
I think, and again, Mr. Mayor, I'm going to ask for Mary to assist me on this response. My understanding is that we are running up against a bit of a timeline on getting this allocation back to HUD in order to receive these dollars. And so I would, and Mary, you can correct me if I'm wrong, I would hesitate in tabling the item tonight, but if you wanted to potentially reallocate, then we could certainly have that dialogue. Is that fair?
Correct. We would have to go back through the public,
Public hearing?
Yes.
yeah, the
Process?
public
Oh,
hearing
okay.
and the public notice to let people know that this is how we intend to spend the
Because
money.
we do open this to the public for public comment to ask for funding, and so this is what we got out of it.
Okay.
If I could though, Mayor, the question about tabling, if you did, want to change the allocation, tonight is that night. And as I said, we'd have to probably start over, but you do have the option of placing the item on the table until after your judge interviews, for example, if you didn't want to go through the whole thing now, and then still address it later in this same meeting as well.
Did you have some ideas, Bob, what you want to do?
Well, let me just voice my opinion. I would rather see that 150 for the city parsed out equally between the number 2, number 3, and number 5 for food, senior meals, and transitional housing. These COVID funds are I think that our objective should be focusing those on people's need for a place to live and food to eat on the table. I get concerned with these is because I tend to see a trend of us taking the lion's share for a city project that we've wanted to do for some time, and now here's some money that we can use for it. I see people every day in the court that are being evicted, that are crying because they don't have any options left, and I personally would prefer to see those funds go to those folks that need to catch up on their rent, i.e. through CARA, that need to pay their utilities, that need food relief, instead of the city taking 150 for kiosks. So, that being said, I don't know if that's viable tonight. I don't want to blow up the whole project. I'm leaning towards making a motion to do exactly that, to take the 150 and split it 50,000 each for those 3 projects. So I don't know if that'll fly or not.
We would have to actually go back out to public comment. So I would have to redo the plan and then put that back out for public notice, that's how we want to split the money.
Okay.
What's
Right.
your timetable? What's the limit? When does it have to be completed? I know some of this CARES Act money had to be spent by the end of the year, if it was specific from the feds.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, this particular funding source has a different delivery date, and what is it, 2 years from the
Yeah.
time that right?
Well, actually, I think we have 3, but they prefer to be done quicker.
Okay, so we might have a little time.
But we may have time to expend the money, Mayor. I would ask Mary to perhaps, is there a delivery date to HUD on the plan? Do we have to meet a specific timeframe for
I was not
HUD's
given a
plan?
deadline.
Okay,
Well,
all right.
let me, can I ask the council what their thoughts are on this?
I mean, the items on there, I would say, and you know, that maybe it's appropriate to table this matter at least till the end of the meeting. And I say that because I'd like to speak, obviously, with Ms. Allen, because I don't know that we'd necessarily have to go back out, but I do want to talk to her about that. This is the time for public hearing and for adoption of the plan, and so allocation is always there. I think the issue with allocation, I'll look to Larry and Mary there, is that a number of these entities, this is what they've asked for.
Right.
And while you might be dumping more on them, you do want to make sure that you're getting a deliverable for that that's going
Right.
to match it. So there may be some, for example, more money for against abuse, that they could easily match with
So
that.
can we approve the three entities? There's three that you're okay with?
Four.
Four. And then hold on the 150 to the city?
I think if you don't allocate that tonight, you're gonna wanna hold everything, because I don't think, you would definitely have to go back out to public hearing and public comment if you wanted to completely reallocate. But again, I think my recommendation at this point is maybe table this matter until after the judge interviews, so that at least staff can get on the same page, make sure that we have the opportunity to discuss it. I believe you can reallocate that, but the big issue is whether you're going to be able to reallocate that in a way that they can actually use it under the terms. So, for example, putting in for a case manager as part of that only has one specific cost. So just dumping more money into that.
Well,
you
and that's
really
why I
aren't gonna
left
be
that
able
one
to
off.
spend. Right.
Number one, I'm fine with as is. The other three are the Seeds of Hope, Dorothy Powell Senior Center, and I assume number 5 is CARA.
Against abuse.
Number 5 is against abuse? Okay.
Cara
Yes,
is
against
number
abuse.
one.
Okay, gotcha. But that's for a position, right?
Yes, yes.
No,
And it
against
looks like
abuse,
oh.
against abuse was for rental, transitional housing, short-term rental.
Number 5,
Yes.
okay.
And it looks like several of us do have comments, so do you want to go through those comments now, or are we going to table it till after? Because I know all.
Yeah.
I think
we
you
have
should make
Mayor?
them now before they table, so the staff has a little idea of direction.
And for me too, if
Right.
there's not support on the council, I won't make that motion. We'll go ahead and pass it and get it
Yeah,
over with.
go ahead, if you guys have it. Matt, you want to go first?
Okay.
Lisa was first.
Okay, Lisa, go ahead.
Well, and I understand your concern, because when I first saw the kiosk thing, but, you know, of course, when you look at the CARES, you know, funding, and I haven't looked at this one in particular, but, you know, when the money is allocated, it a lot of times kind of like, and I think you're referring to the last time when we approved the body cams and everything else, you know, the way that money was allocated was for public safety. And then, of course, we were opening up monies, you know, so then we were using this to go towards body cams, which that's where the money was distributed. So I know that's probably where you're referring to. And in this particular project, because I deal with a lot of these in the Homeless Coalition, a lot of these agencies, it's exactly what Brett says. Sometimes they don't have, we can say we're gonna give CARA another $50,000, but will CARA be able to use it with the directions or limitations that this funding is used for? And CARA has received quite a bit of dollars. They've received additional CARES funding for some of these services, as some of these other agencies have. So I know you went through a particular process, they requested these dollar amounts. So it's hard for us to just go and say, we're gonna double that and give it to them and double it, because there's administrative fees, there's administrative staffing that has to execute against whatever those dollars are. So, you know, the kiosk, the only thing that, you know, I like about it is it will, you know, avoid large numbers of people coming into City Hall. There are a lot of people, we all will go on the computer, but there's a lot of our community members that will not go on the computer and pay their bills. They're paying cash still. So, you know, for the kiosk, what I would like to see is making sure that we're putting them in parts of the city that are convenient for our citizens, and making sure that we're advertising, you know, why we're doing it, the safety, doing it in Spanish for certain neighborhoods to make it convenient for people to go and pay their bills and do whatever. But there are people that don't go on the computer. We can say it, you know, we do, you know, my husband pays, you know, well, he does the bills, but,
Just calling you out, Dennis.
but, you know, we'll go on the computer, but there still are a lot of people that don't. And I like the idea of, you know, not putting that burden on the staff and having people coming into our office. 150 seems like a lot. I hope that that is a pretty good estimate of the actual dollar amount. But that I believe CARES funding does ask for those type of programs too. So I don't know, Bob, I think I would have to really, if we were going to totally, you know, get rid of that and allocate to these other agencies, I think we really have to look at how much money and what they can do. Can they execute against whatever plan is that they've applied for and requested? So,
Matt, you had a comment?
I had the same concern as Bob did. It's helping me though once Mary said that, about, you know, putting them in the neighborhoods that need it and building it up so people can pay and using, you know, I don't want to reinvent the wheel and using, you know, existing type kiosks that people are familiar with. And while $150,000 is a lot of money, I mean, that's what concerned me too. It's the same amount that we're giving everyone just to help pretty much, you know? But, you know, then she said the software and building that so that we'll have that so people can do it. And I know that doesn't come cheap. So, I mean, I think I see both sides of it, but I'm okay with it because I don't want to hold up the other ones. And also, I've been, you know, served on boards and stuff, and yeah, it's great to have money, but you got to be able to use it, and these are probably very restricted dollars. But I do want to caution staff because, again, other side of my mouth, some projects I've seen, I'm like, are we just using this money because we have it for something long, or is this really for CARES? You know, and that's where I want to make sure, and I think you've tied it enough for me to understand this is for CARES Act.
Donna?
Just quickly, and I do agree, Bob, that this is a little bit different from the other applications that we're looking at. But I think that the safety and security of not only our staff, but the citizens is part of the whole CARES package. And I know several of us sat on, not a committee, but a group that reviewed applications from nonprofits and from businesses for some of the CARES Act funding in another way. And quite frankly, it was really difficult to give that away because, you know, when you're talking about some of the nonprofits, they don't have the means to do that. And so to give them $50,000 more is a lot more intensive for them than what even some of us might, you know, anticipate. So I'm not necessarily in favor of moving this or tabling it for that reason, because I think that in the long term, $150,000 is not just a one-time shot, but it is something that our citizens will be able to use, especially in the areas, as Lisa said, that they do not have transportation and they don't have access to computers, so.
Mayor,
Go ahead, Bob.
I will withdraw my intention of filing an amendment. The last thing I want to do is throw a wrench in the works and slow this down, and I'm afraid that's what it'll do. And so I appreciate the other council members' opinions, and I'll withdraw.
Okay.
Thank you.
And you're going to be looking at places like Lincola and that sort of thing? 'Cause that'd be a perfect spot for one.
correct.
Okay. All right. Any other questions or comments? And we've closed the floor, so the public hearing is over. So I will call for a resolution then, please, Gloria.
Resolution number 5270, a resolution of the mayor and council of the city of Casa Grande, Arizona, adopting the amended Community Development Block Grant Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Allocation to the 2020-2024 Consolidated Plan and the Project Year 2020 Annual Action Plan for the use of additional CDBG funds.
Mayor McFarland, I move approval of resolution number 5270 as presented.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Gloria, can I please get a roll call vote?
Councilmember Lavender,
Yes.
Councilmember McBride.
Yes.
Councilmember Fitzgibbons.
Yes.
Councilmember Herman.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Huddleston.
Yes.
Mayor McFarland.
Yes. All right. Thank you, Mary Ellen. So the next item on our agenda is the interview for the city judge, item K1. Tonight, we are going to speak with Diane Juarez, Richard Mapp, and James Spear. And just to kind of set the ground rules here, we're gonna allow 30 minutes for each interview. We have a set of questions that each council member has, so I will allow each council member to ask their question in the order that they are presented on the sheets that you have all been supplied. And then, then I'll let you kind of introduce the rest of it, Scott.
Thank you, Mayor McFarland, members of the council. As you're already aware, we've been engaged over the last couple of months in the process that's led up to this evening as part of the selection of a city judge for the next 2-year term. You're aware that the city charter sets the term of the judge as that coterminous with that of the mayor. So every 2 years, we go through this process. We open the recruitment, solicited applications and resumes in response. You complied with the provisions of the city charter and appointed a 5-citizen judicial selection committee and charged the committee with reviewing and bringing forward names. The charter requires a minimum of 2 names be communicated to the mayor and council. By ordinance, you directed the committee to forward no more than 5 names. So the committee received the applications that had been submitted. They did their screening work, selected a group to interview. They conducted their interviews and selected 3 individuals that you mentioned this evening to interview with you. I need to make one correction on the agenda. We have a transposition there. It's James Mapp and Richard Spear. So we have a transposition on the first names of the 2 candidates. You also directed that the names be submitted to you in alphabetical order, which they have been here, and so the order of the interviews this evening is also alphabetical. So after the conclusion of the interviews, the expectation is that you will move into executive session for your deliberations. After that point in time, you'll come back out into open session, and the city clerk will guide you through the process that you've adopted involved with the selection of the city judge, and then you'll set compensation this evening, or that's the expectation. So with that foundation in mind, our incumbent Judge Deanna Juarez is your first candidate, and then after the conclusion of that, I'll bring the other candidate in one at a time.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Scott. Can we take like a 2-minute bio break? All right, let's take about a
I say yes.
2-minute bio break. We'll start back up here at about, just before 8 o'clock.
I have a question for you, but I'll wait till you get back. No, go ahead. Oh.
So again, just to kind of reiterate, we have the timer on. There's 30 minutes so that everybody kind of sees where we're at. We want to try and keep this to 30 minutes. And then, and we have 6 questions. So we want to try and get through all 6 because each one of us has a question that we'll ask. And then we want to begin by having you take a few minutes and tell us about yourself, your background, education, experience, and then each of us will ask our questions. And I think I get to start, so. But I'll let you start.
Okay, thank you, and good evening, Mayor and members of the council. I am Deani Waters. I am the current city judge. I've worked in the Arizona judiciary for more than 2 decades, and if you reappoint me tonight in May, it'll be 20 years for the city of Casa Grande. Since my tenure here at the city of Casa Grande, I've earned a bachelor's degree in criminal justice administration, and I've also earned a master's, a dual master's in business and public administration. And I went on to complete the highest level of education that a court employee can achieve, which is fellow of the National Center for State Courts. That's a mouthful. I almost butchered that one severely, but it's Fellows of the National Center for State Courts Institute for Court Management Program. In addition to my education and training here with the city of Casa Grande, I also volunteer at the local and state level on many different boards and commissions to further the administration of justice. Some of those boards and committees, commissions include our local CLARA, Community Action Human Resources Agency Board. I've been on their board for several years. I also serve on a committee for the Mayor's Task Force on Homelessness. At the state level, the Court Leadership Institute of Arizona, and I also recently got appointed to the Committee on the Impact of Domestic Violence in the Courts. So in addition to serving our community, I try to do additional things to improve our criminal justice system by serving on local boards and commissions. And I think that that skill set that I bring to the table makes me the perfect candidate to continue being your city judge. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Judge. So your first question then is from me, and what is your perspective on the relationship between the municipal court judge and the mayor and city council, excuse me, mayor and city council and city manager?
It's important to remember that we do have the separation of powers. However, we do need to make sure that the court is held accountable and we are transparent in what we are doing and what we are setting out to accomplish. I participate in the city's budget process. I also provide mayor and council with monthly reports as to how the court is doing. In addition to that, I try to provide additional information as needed. For example, this year we dealt with COVID. I tried to update city leadership as well as mayor and council and provide information as to the status of the court, what the court is doing. I believe I was one of the first departments to issue a return to service plan. That's something that our staff also appreciated as well because we were in really uncertain times. And here we had a document that set out in different phases at what phase we're at, what were going to be the expectations of the court and our operations. So I provided that to mayor and council as well. I also issue an annual year in review for court staff. I don't know what happened, but this year it turned out to be 18 pages long. Staff contributed to some of that. We also included some pictures of the modifications that we did at the court as well. But at the end of the day, I think it's important that the court has a relationship with mayor and council and that we can make sure that we're being held accountable and provide that information so there is transparency.
Great, thank you.
My turn?
Mr. Edelson.
Deani, I'll read my question and then I have a follow-up question as
Okay.
well.
Thank you.
Tell us what the term judicial ethics means to you.
The Arizona Supreme Court Administrative Office of the Courts does have a judicial code of conduct, and I believe that it's really important to understand that judicial officers as well as judicial employees should be held to a higher standard, and including in that higher standard, we should make sure that we instill integrity, whether we're at work, at home, in our personal lives, out in public. We need to make sure that we are avoiding the appearance of propriety and we're holding ourselves to that higher standard because people need to look up to us and not think of us as, I got into trouble, but the people at the court are doing the same thing as I am, and we don't want that. So we need to make sure that we are being held to a higher standard, that we are obeying the laws, and that when people see us, that they think of us as people of integrity.
Thank you. And I need to ask about your history. Have you ever had any complaints that have been sustained and/or resulted in disciplinary action, either in the judiciary or in previous employment?
And when you say sustain, you mean by founded?
Yes.
Okay, I have not.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
All right, next will be Lisa Fitzgibbons.
That the municipal court is the people's court. Assuming you agree with that, if you can explain why this description is important, and just kind of tag it on to that, just if you can let me know how someone would, how I would know, or we would know that someone would be treated fairly and impartially in your court.
Okay, absolutely, Councilwoman Fitzgibbons. I would definitely say the Casa Grande City Court is truly a people's court. Staff and I have worked really hard to implement programs to help people and help people be successful in their cases. When people come to our office, we treat them with dignity and respect, make sure that we are not violating their rights. And if they want to talk to you or in court, they want to talk to the judge, we make sure that we give them that opportunity, keeping in mind that we are preserving their rights. Sometimes people forget that they have the right to remain silent and they want to say things that they probably shouldn't be, so I'll just kind of put on the brakes and remind them, you do have the right to remain silent at this point in your case. We're not at the trial stage. You don't have to tell me anything or explain anything to me. But we have implemented programs such as our compliance assistant program, where people can come in and make a down payment on their fine, go on a payment contract, and get their license reinstated, where previously they would have to make that payment in full. And sometimes people have thousands of dollars, and it's hard for them to come up with thousands of dollars to pay in full to get their license reinstated. So we try to be transparent, spread the word, let people know of the different programs that we do have. We also have our compliance department, where we have a part-time compliance monitor who works really hard to help people and help them be successful, communicate with people if they're not on the right track. He lets them know, I'm here for you to help you get back on track. Obviously, not everyone's going to be successful. However, during this past year, it was a difficult time. However, we did maintain an 85% compliance with non-monetary court orders, even though a lot of people struggled to get their counseling done because a lot of the agencies did shut down. However, we worked with these people, reached out to them, worked to get them online with different programs, whether it's some kind of self-study program, online programs. Some of the programs are only offered in person, so we are continuing to work with those individuals to get them back on track as we speak, so they can be successful with those. But I definitely would say that we are a people's court, where we are open to people coming in and saying, do you know what? I'm not in compliance, and this is why I'm not in compliance, but now I'm in the position where I can comply with the orders of the court, and we help get them back on track. Was there a second part to your question?
No, that was.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Number 4 question will come from Councilmember Herman.
Hi, Judge. Our judge is responsible for the development and management of the city court budget. What experience do you have in developing a budget and making sure that you operate within it?
Excellent.
And also, a little follow-up is, tell us about, I know you have like 2 funding sources, so if you could go into that a little bit.
A few different funding
Yeah,
sources, but
I'm
yes.
speaking the judicial side as well as the municipal side.
Okay. Mr. Herman, I have a lot of experience preparing budgets and operating within those budgets. And your second follow-up question is kind of easy to answer because we're dealing with COVID. And as we know, the city was really uncertain with this budget year as to what revenues were going to be. And we actually were asked to cut our budget this year by $48,000. We have a small budget. $48,000 is a big hit to our budget. And we can't afford to cut services because at the end of the day, our services that we are providing are mandated by law and statute. If a person comes to court and they are asking the court to appoint them a public defender to represent them, I can't say, do you know what, I'm sorry, Mayor and Council just cut our budget by $48,000, so you don't get an attorney to represent you in your case. That's just really not an option. So we do have additional funding sources, probably more than two, but we have our Court Enhancement Fund, which is a fund that is comprised of funds that the court collects from the offender, and that we can use to enhance court operations. For example, we have audio visual equipment in our courtroom. It's expensive. So when we get to the point where we need to update or replace some of that equipment, instead of going back to the general fund and saying, hey, Mayor and Council, we need $50,000 to upgrade our courtroom, we are fortunate we can go back to that Court Enhancement Fund and use that money. That fund's been very well managed by court administration over the several years, so we do have some money in that fund where we can use those funds to upgrade different things or enhance our courtroom as we have needed. We also have two self-funded programs, which is our court security fund, court security program, as well as our compliance fund. Those are also fees that are assessed to offenders that the city recoups for those services. And then some of the other funds that we used this year to offset that $48,000 gap is our Fill the Gap Fund. That's money that comes back from the state annually, as well as our Judicial Enhancement Fund. Both of those funds are monies that are collected or generated through funds and fees. The city actually has possession of those monies, but it's considered grant funds. For us to use those monies, we have to go back and ask the administrative court for permission to use those funds, and it's administered like a grant. So at this point, we are paying for a lot of our court-appointed attorneys, public defenders, and Rule 11 evaluations are coming from that fund. And at the end of the fiscal year, we'll go through and we will finish out that grant and close it out with the administrative offices of the court.
Okay, great, thank you. Next item is, question number 5, and that would be Councilmember McBride.
Good evening, Judge. As you know, we have 6 full-time and several part-time help in our court, and employee management is a challenge. We all know that. Can you tell us a time when you had an underperforming employee reporting to you, and how did you address that situation? And also, what was the outcome?
I don't know if I really ever had an employee underperform. We do have a lot of work, and our staff, they are expected to process a high volume caseload. So a lot of times something will happen and maybe staff will get a little bit behind on their work. So a lot of times when that happens, I will go to that employee and say, do you know what, I noticed that you have a lot of files on your desk. Is there something I can help you with? Or is there something we can change or modify? My staff do have a schedule where they're assigned certain tasks, and they rotate on those tasks every 6 months so they can be cross-trained. Periodically, staff will come to me and say, do you know what, this position has these tasks, but it's too much work, and maybe this position over here, their duties aren't as much, and sometimes we'll go back and review that, and we'll modify what the duties are for each position so we can even out some of that caseload.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next is item number 6, and that'll be Councilman Lavender.
Good evening, Judge. If the council surveyed citizens who have been involved in the court system and had to interact with you as city judge, what 3 adjectives would be at the top of the survey response that describe you as a judge, and why would they identify each of those adjectives to describe you?
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Mr. Lavender. Very, very good question, very interesting question. I don't think this is a question that we've seen before, but I know it is on Mayor and Council's strategic agenda to implement customer satisfaction surveys. I know it's bad timing and it is the middle of COVID, but we finally got our customer satisfaction surveys launched. I believe we've been doing them about four months, and I've been working on trying to figure out how to put a scorecard together to share those results with the public. I am glad to say that over the 4 or 5 months that we have been collecting the customer satisfaction surveys, we've received all positive feedback. In addition to that, we actually got some feedback on other departments that come in and interact with our our department as well. So we've taken those surveys and we've sent it back to the department director so they can share that positive feedback with their staff as well. And they've received that pretty well, as they got feedback that was totally unsolicited and kind of tells them how they are doing. As far as your 3 adjectives, I would say fair, listen to what I had to say, and cared about my case and what I had to say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So as we kind of wrap up then.
Can I get a couple-minute wrap-up?
Oh, yeah. I'm getting there. Why don't you just take a few minutes then to wrap up the interview and give us any thoughts
Okay.
you wish to leave with us as we consider you and the other candidates.
Thank you. I really enjoy what I do, and I really love working for the city of Casa Grande. I feel that we have a really great community, and I enjoy what I do, and I feel that what I do is very rewarding. I have been a longtime resident of the community, and I'm also vested here in the community, and not only my professional, but my personal life as well. I have a really diversified staff, and I encourage them to accomplish their personal goals or educational goals. I recently had one employee come to me and said, guess what, I enrolled in college. She's going back to college, so yeah, I'm so happy for her. I also have another employee that's getting ready to complete CLIA's Certified Court Management Program, as well as the Certified Court Executive Program. And I have 2 other employees that are getting ready to complete the Arizona Court Supervisor Program. Unfortunately, due to COVID, they would have been completed right now, but some of their classes got pushed back a little bit. I also have another employee who is currently enrolled in the Arizona Court Interpreter Credentialing Program, and I have 2 other employees that are interested in enrolling in that program as well. So I'm really proud of my staff and that they make those efforts. And I hope that my encouragement helps give them that motivation to complete the programs that they start. But I've dedicated my career to improving the administration of justice and to help our community. And I really hope that everyone sees that and understands that. And I'm hoping that you will appoint me for another 2 years tonight. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Judge. Appreciate it. So I do, while we're going to get the next candidate, but we'll probably we will make a decision hopefully tonight. And after we interview the next 2, then we'll go into executive session. And then when we come out, we'll take a vote. Thank you. Thank you for all the hard work too. It is appreciated. And while I have the speaker, and I do want to send a special thank you out to our 2020 Judicial Selection Committee for all their work. I'd be remiss if I didn't thank them. Judy Jackson, Michael Cruz, Gilbert Figueroa, Mike Henderson, and Roger Vanderpool were the committee members that graciously gave us their time to work on the large number of applicants that we had and come up with the final 3 candidates here tonight. Judy she served as the chairperson, and I want to give her a special thank you as well for being the chairperson of that committee. So is this Richard Mapp or James Mapp? No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. They had your name typed wrong.
James Mapp, pleased to meet you all.
Nice to meet you, James. And tonight, just to kind of outline kind of what we're doing, we're going to allow 30 minutes. There's a timer on the podium, and we can see the timer on the front, so we'll try and make sure we keep it moving so that we stay within that time limit. And then just to get started here, why don't you each council member will ask a question. So, and I think you've been supplied with those questions, so we'll go through the 6 questions that we have. And then why don't you begin by taking a few minutes and telling us a little bit about yourself, your background, your education, your experience, and then we'll have each of the council members ask a question.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. My background, who I am, how I got here, I was the first in my family to go to college. My wife and I went to NAU together, graduated from there, went to law school up in Portland, Oregon, and then realized I missed the sunshine, so I came back to Arizona. I worked as a prosecutor at first in Kingman for Mojave County and for the city of Kingman, dealing with major crimes, sex crimes, crimes against children, and then at the city attorney's office, dealing with domestic violence, DUIs, code violations, things like that. When my daughter was born in 2003, she had a severe heart condition, so we had to move to the Valley, and that was what brought me into the Attorney General's office. The Attorney General's office was looking for somebody to do Indian law for the Indian gaming matters that they had. And since I had absolutely no experience in that, I started reading to find out what was going on. They liked me enough that they put me in that job, and I worked with the tribes and with the casinos for about 5 years. Then I was looking for something a little closer to home because I was living in the West Valley, and I ended up finding out about a judge position that opened up in the little town of El Mirage. And although I had no prior experience as a judge, that hadn't stopped me before, so I went ahead, applied, they liked me. I think one of the things that helped was that I actually went to the court ahead of time. I sat in on the court, I talked to the court clerks, I wanted to find out, what am I getting into? I don't just want to apply for a job because it's a good job. I wanted to know what was going on, and the council seemed to respect that. So after a couple terms in El Mirage, I went to work for the Department of Juvenile Corrections, where I work now. They needed somebody to be their in-house counsel, and so I serve as their general counsel, providing them legal advice, helping with the executive team, doing a lot of planning for the future and things like that. For those of you who don't know, juvenile corrections locks up the most seriously delinquent, violent, mentally disturbed kids in the state, and we do our best to treat them. So that's what's my professional resume. What's not included on the paperwork and things like that is the things I'm most proud of. I've been married for 36 years to my wife. She was my high school sweetheart. We went to college together at NAU. We've raised a couple kids who have special needs, and that's been probably the most challenging and rewarding thing I've ever done in my life. And the reason I do what I do is because I think it's important to serve the community. When our daughter was born with a heart condition, we got support from people we'd never heard of, we'd never seen before, people who didn't know us. And we realized that this community, any community that we're part of, we owe to give back to that. And so that's why I've always been in public service, because I feel like whatever talents I have, whatever abilities I have, I need to pay back what's been helped for me.
Right. Thank you. So the first question I get to ask. So what is your perspective on the relationship between the municipal court and the mayor and the city council and the city manager? What is your perspective on that relationship?
It involves a little bit of tension there because you have different branches, the judicial branch, the executive branch, but it also has to be a cooperative venture. The judge, and I've seen this unfortunately happen sometimes, cannot operate the court as if they are in a vacuum, as if there is no context, there's nobody there who is they're accountable to. It's actually like a city department. There are the same HR issues, the same personality issues, the same budget issues that are involved. When I was presiding judge in El Mirage, one of my important tasks that I kind of had to push myself into was being part of their executive team. I had to be there when the decisions were being made. I couldn't just make a decision in the court out of whatever I came up with. I had to have input and feedback from the city on what's feasible and what's happening. We ran into an issue when they put in photo enforcement cameras on Grand Avenue. I apologize, wasn't my idea if you were one of the thousands and thousands of people who got pegged with those, but they didn't bother talking to the court first. And one day we found out we were going to go from 10,000 cases a year to 60,000 cases a year. Get ready. And so we had to adjust. And that was a real lesson for me that I needed to stay in touch with, keep my hand on the pulse of, and know what was going on in the city, because obviously I can't operate a city court without the full cooperation and knowledge of what the city's doing and without them knowing what I'm doing. And so my idea is, while there is some tension there, because the court has to be independent, most importantly, there has to be cooperation there. There has to be a sense of being part of the team, being responsible to the city. You're providing a service for the city, you need to make sure you're responsible to the council, the mayor, and most importantly, the people.
Thank you. Next question then will be asked by our Mayor Pro Tem, that's Mr. Huddleston to my right.
Mr. Mapp, good evening. I have a question, and then I'll have a follow-up question to it. Can you tell us what the term judicial ethics means to you?
There is an idea that judges are supposed to be sober, I guess is the old word. They're supposed to be solemn, they're supposed to be serious, and to take the rules seriously. Judicial ethics has to be judged at the highest possible level. It has to be a set of rules that are ingrained in the judges themselves and reinforced by the judicial community. When I took the bench, I began a file that I called Judges Behaving Badly, because I kept seeing so many examples of judges doing foolish things, things that if a banker or a clerk or a person in business did them, you would say, oh, that's a really dumb thing to do. But when a judge does it, you think to yourself, what on earth was the breakdown there? The reason I kept the file was not so that I could write funny stories for the newspaper, but was so that I could make sure I was in check, to make sure I did not commit some of these terrible things like, you know, sexually harassing clerks and being rude to litigants who appeared in front of you. One of the biggest judicial complaints that the Judicial Ethics Commission gets is just that judges are mean to people in front of them. They speak down to them. They are rude to them. They do not take those people's cases seriously. And a big part of judicial ethics, we're supposed to treat everyone the same. But that doesn't mean you treat everyone equally badly. It means you have to recognize what every person who comes in front of you is coming from, and recognize that, take that into account, and try to make sure that their experience is one that is fair. So judicial ethics means if you have this goal of fairness, you have to apply the rules 100%. You have to be seen to be applying those rules 100% to yourself and to others. I had judges come in front of me because they got speeding tickets. I had one judge in particular who said, well, the law says, I'm sorry, I'm impersonating his voice. I don't want to give away his identity. The law says that it's a reasonable and prudent speed, and since I am a judge, whatever I decide is reasonable and prudent must be reasonable and prudent. And I had to tell him, well, in your court you may make those decisions, but in the city of El Mirage, the city is the one, and I am ultimately the one. Everyone has to be treated fairly. Every judge has to hold themselves to that high standard as well to make sure that they do not behave badly.
Okay, thank you. And my follow-up question is, have you had any sustained complaints either in the judiciary or with previous employers that have resulted in disciplinary action?
I have an informal discipline, which I'll tell you about just for the sake of clarity. When we got photo enforcement, we had to revamp all of our practices, all of our policies. We had to figure out how we were going to get 60,000 people a year coming through this court. Fortunately, most of it was handled via the mail. And at first, it was somebody would call up and say, I got this ticket, what do I do? We say, well, you come down, you tell us if you want a trial, you tell us if you want to pay the ticket or go to traffic school. And we had so many people from out of state who just said, can't I just take care of this over the phone? So what we did is we talked to our city attorney, we talked to other jurisdictions, we wanted to find out what we could do about this. And so we set up a policy where if somebody said, I want to just take care of this over the phone, we would accept that as a telephonic appearance. So they didn't have to come back from Minnesota or Las Vegas or wherever they were to actually appear in person. Well, one such person, miscommunication or whatever, got himself a ticket, was living out of state, didn't show up for it, but he had called in and made a telephonic appearance. He didn't like that, so he complained to the Judicial Commission. the way the Judicial Commission analyzed it was, it's all well and good to do that as a service to help people out. In fact, it's not even clear whether that's wrong to do that. But if you have somebody who doesn't want to opt in voluntarily, you shouldn't automatically opt them in voluntarily. And so, despite the fact that my decision had not only been made by me in consultation with the city attorney, but was actually ratified by the judge who followed me in the exact same case, I took the heat. I took the rap for it. I had written the policies. I had set them up. I had enforced them. I was the one who wrote denied on this person's thing. And so I was the one who got the rap. And the informal discipline was a letter saying, Mr. Mapp, don't do this again.
Okay. Is that all?
That's it, yes.
Okay. Sir, when I Google your name,
Yes.
I come up with a Arizona Republic article about abuse of a credit card with City of El Mirage.
Yes.
You want to tell us about that?
Oh, certainly. This is the court kitty cat. We had a stray cat that came into the court, and the ladies in the court wanted to adopt it. And so they adopted the cat, and I said, that's fine as long as it doesn't interfere with anything that we're doing, and we don't have allergies or anything like that. Well, they needed to have the cat fixed, get shots, all that kind of stuff. I allowed the use of the credit card because they were going to pay it back, and that way nobody had to put their own credit card online. I checked with our city attorney to make sure that was okay, and he said, as long as it's paid, that's okay. But the second thing that happened, and nobody made any squawk about the cat until the second thing happened, my car broke down. On my way to work, I didn't have my credit card on me. I called the city attorney. I said, Rick, is it okay if I pay this back right away if I go ahead and just use the city credit card so that I can get to work? He said, you can do that. He did that. I paid them back. I thought everything was fine. Unfortunately, the timing of this incident was right as one council was going out and another council was coming in. The council that was going out was not happy with the fact that they were losing power. They were not happy with the fact that the people who aligned themselves with the court were on the other side, were on the winning side. And so the mayor took it upon herself to, try to fire me, basically, over this. She did that on like the last day that she was in office, and the following day, when the new mayor came in, they erased that, and they got rid of it. So I was really upset that it made the paper, because one of my big things has been, I'm not going to go to the press. Even if I have to defend myself or tell my side of the story, I don't want to get into this big, it's ugly, it's not good for the city.
Yeah.
If I'm right, if I'm wrong, just let it go. But yeah, unfortunately, that's out there.
Okay.
And
Were you disciplined for that?
no. I mean, the mayor tried to. She tried to,
Okay.
put me on some kind of suspension. She tried to get me fired, but all of that was done
Okay.
away with.
Okay, I appreciate you explaining that.
No problem.
Thank you.
All right, next one is question number 3, and that is from Councilwoman Fitzgibbons.
Hi there.
Hello.
It said that the municipal court is a people's court. Assuming you agree with that, please explain why this description is important. And kind of like a follow-up on that, and you kind of answered it already, but I want to ask it again, even though you did in the last question, I believe, is how do we know someone would be treated fairly and impartially that comes to the court?
Thank you. It is the people's court because for most people, it is their first and perhaps their only experience with the judicial system. Most people don't get involved in multi-million-dollar lawsuits or class action lawsuits or get charged with felony offenses. Most people, if they're going to get into the court, it's because they got a traffic ticket. And most of the people who come in are pro per. They are not represented by counsel. They don't know the law. They don't understand what's going on. They have to be treated differently than if they were going to Superior Court, if they had an attorney. To them, this is just as high stakes as somebody who's being sued over $1 million land deal. This is their life, their livelihood, perhaps their driver's license. So by making it the people's court, it is not only their first contact with the judicial system, it has to be a gentle, just, and fair contact. What has to happen is they have to understand why they're there. They have to understand what's going on and what's happening to them. When I studied over at the Glendale City Court, when I first became a judge, I watched their proceedings. It galled me that a judge would make a decision and walk off the bench. And that was it. No explanation, no education of the people. And I was told, well, that way they can't, appeal you or say that you did something wrong. And I'm like, what did that person learn? They learned nothing. All they learned is that you believed the cop and you didn't believe them, and they have to pay a fine. I would explain my rulings. And this is how you ensure that you're being fair. Everything is out in the open. Everything is done on the record. Everything is clear and plain so that people know why you're making the ruling you're making. You're very rarely going to make everyone happy. I had a boss once in the county attorney's office. All he ever did was adoptions because everybody in court was going to be happy. But most court is not like that. Most court, there's going to be an officer who's unhappy because you said not responsible. There's going to be a person who's unhappy because you said you are responsible. If you don't explain that to the officer, to the pro per defendant, you haven't done your full job. That's part of the job. Since it is part of the community and it's a service that's provided to the community, the people need to know what is going on there. Most people are never going to come back. Very few are going to actually do jury duty. But when they are there, it's our opportunity to say, this is what the law says, this is why it applies to you, and this is how it applies to everybody.
Okay. The next question is from Councilmember Herman.
Hi, thanks. I just want to let you know we're about a little over halfway through, just for your timing.
All right.
Our judge is responsible for the development and management of the city court budget. What experience do you have in developing a budget and making sure you operate within that budget? And also, are you aware of the different funding type sources that comes with a city municipal court?
Yes, as a matter of fact, and my experience started out with nothing when I started at El Mirage, because basically the city manager gave me the budget and said, here's your budget for the next year. When I started to understand the job and what we needed, then I started being actively involved in the budget process at the beginning of the budget process. I couldn't just wait for them to hand me a budget. I needed to know, what are we forecast for? What kind of employee needs are we going to have? What kind of case needs are we going to have? And so I became very involved in it. I started going to those, what I'm sure here are very enjoyable and fun and exciting budget meetings, and sitting through them and understanding where her funds come from, and understanding where the court funds come from and how they can be used. If you Googled me, you'll probably also know that towards the end of my tenure, I was not getting along with the city manager. It was the recession. The city needed money. The city had this cash cow of photo enforcement going through, and very little of that money was going to the city. But there are dedicated funds on each ticket that are set aside for court development. Now, you can't use that to just pay salaries. You can't use that to just, give some of the money to the police. They are very limited in how you can use that. And the city wanted their hands on it. When you've got $1 million, $2 million, $3 million coming through that fund, it's very tempting. And at one point, I had to ask the presiding judge of the Superior Court, Norm Davis, to actually step in and explain to the city manager that, no, you cannot run the city court. It is a separate branch of government. And Norm Davis also said to me, try to work this out with them. Try to find a way that everybody can be happy so that this doesn't continue to be so tense and such bad blood. So my experience at knowing where the funds come from, when I did my budget, I knew where the dollars were coming in and how those dollars could be spent going out. And there were very strict rules. This also gets back to the question of judicial ethics. It probably would have been easier for me to simply say, go ahead, I'm not going to look. You take the money and you guys need it. I'm sure you'll use it for good purpose. But that's not what I was allowed to do. And that's not what those funds were set aside for. And that would have been wrong.
All right.
Thank you.
Question 5 then will be asked by our Councilwoman McBride.
Good evening.
Hello.
In our court, the judge has a staff of 6 full-time and then several part-time help. Employee management, obviously you know this, is sometimes a challenge. And can you tell us a time when you had an underperforming employee under you, and how did you address it and what was the outcome?
When I was at El Mirage, we had a person who was going to be riffed. They were going to lose their job. They had been working for the city for a long time as a clerk over in City Hall, and the city manager said, "Can you find a place for her?" Well, we certainly had plenty of work because we had way too many cases. So we said, "We'll take this person on." But it was one of those situations where they were basically getting rid of her without getting rid of her. They handed me an employee who was toxic. Not only could she not do her own work, she created more work for other people. I was very much aware that she was actually a very long-time city employee, and you don't deal with that lightly. It sends the wrong message if you just fire somebody because of that. So we took every step we could. We counseled her. We put a person to work with her day by day, making sure that she understood what she was supposed to do and where her mistakes were. And our city manager was ready to pull her hair out, or not city manager, the court manager, just because she was spending half of her day fixing this woman's mistakes. And so my first thought was, let's go back to the source. Talk to the city manager, can you please take this woman back because she's hurting our court operations? City manager, who was glad to have her off of his hands, said, no, you can't do that. So what I did is I called in our HR person for the city, sat down with them, talked about the issues we had. I knew how to fire somebody. I just didn't want it to come to that if there was any other way. And then with the HR manager there, we brought the woman in. We asked her if there's anything else we could do to help save her job, because it was very obvious by that point that she wasn't going to last very long. And then we told her, we'll let you resign. We don't want to fire you and have that termination on your record, but we'll let you resign if that's what you want to do. And so that's what we did. I mean, it was difficult because when you're working, because we had about 6 or 7 people in the court at that time, you get close to them, you know about their lives, you know about their families, you know about their circumstances, and you don't want to take that action if there's any way that you can possibly avoid it. But sometimes you have to.
Thank you.
Okay. And the last question will be from Councilman Lavender.
Good evening, sir. If the council surveyed citizens who have been involved in the court system and had to interact with you as the city judge, what 3 adjectives would be at the top of the survey responses to describe you as a judge, and why would they identify those 3 responses?
Hopefully, if I am a judge of my own performance, it would be fair, it would be just, and it would be, for want of a better word, pedantic. When I talked about explaining, I'll start with that one. Sometimes I would explain too much. Sometimes I would maybe go into too much detail. People don't necessarily need to know what reasonable and prudent means or how that's defined. But I felt it was necessary. As I said before, you really have to take the chance while you can to educate those people. In terms of being fair and being just, fairness is everybody who gets in front of you is treated the same. That is, when you're weighing the evidence, you weigh the testimony of a citizen driver and the testimony of a police officer by the same standards. Judges have been disciplined in this state for saying, well, he's a police officer, he wouldn't lie in court, or I've known that officer for many, many years, and I trust his word more than I trust this person. And that's exactly what unjust is. Everyone has to be treated the same. And in cases, we actually teach this in judge school. If it's a tie, the tie goes to the driver. You know, there has to be something more that says that the officer is correct. So that's what fairness is. Justice is when you can tailor the result to the circumstances of the person. I mentioned this in my application materials. If a person comes in front of you and she's a single mother and she's driving on a suspended license because she couldn't pay her traffic tickets, and all I'm going to do is lock her up in jail, all I'm going to do is impose another fine that she can't pay, that's not exactly justice. It's fair in the sense that she's getting the exact same fine as the person who came in front of her, but it's not just. It doesn't allow the system to have mercy or compassion for someone in her circumstances. It will not improve her. It will not give her a chance to become law-abiding and drive with insurance and with her tags and things like that. And unfortunately, sometimes The system is set up so that your only options are pay the fine. If you don't pay the fine, we suspend your license. If you drive on a suspended license, you've committed a crime and now you're going to be locked up. And that's not justice. There has to be a way to tailor the result so that it's for the person who's there. One of my favorite examples of this, though, was with graffiti. Every town has a problem with graffiti. We had kids tagging buildings and stuff like that. So part of their sentence was not just pay a fine. It was do community service, cleaning up graffiti, because they don't think about the consequences of their actions. They don't realize how much work it is to get the graffiti off of stucco walls. They don't realize what a mess it makes for other people to clean up. Again, that's what just means. It means tailoring that response of the law to the circumstances of the person to get the best possible outcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so as we kind of close here, I'm going to give you just a few minutes to wrap up and give us any thoughts, you wish to leave with us as we consider you and the other two candidates.
Thank you. Well, first of all, it's great to be able to come here again and to talk to you and to discuss these matters. Believe me, I'm sure your judge probably appreciates it too, just because sometimes you never get to talk about these things. One of the things I did, in addition to the judges behaving badly, is I made a group of other judges where we could get together and talk about these issues and discuss these things. And to be able to do that, especially in public with members of the public here and hearing it, is extremely important so that the court is run in a proper way and that it is seen to be run in a proper way. This is a very important process, and I'm glad I was a part of it. Aside from that, I don't know why you're doing this. And forgive me for saying this, but you might want to consider maybe not having your judge have to be put through the ringer every time. In El Mirage, they realized that this was a huge waste of resources. Every couple years, to take a judge who was doing fine, you had no problems with, and put them through this whole process over and over again. If she's doing a good job, by all means, now probably isn't the right time to change. But because I do want this job, because I do want this chance, I want to tell you this. These are times when things are changing, when we have to be able to keep ahead of those changes. We have to be able to anticipate them. We have to be able to not simply make a plan and say, that's how things are going to go. Because as we all know, plans don't go the way we want them to. And the reason I say this is because although I couldn't go visit the court this time and I couldn't find out about how things were operating, I could go to the court website, I could find out what the court is saying about the circumstances and what things are going on. And the one thing that really disturbed me was at the end of the court's COVID reaction plan, everything goes back to normal. And that, with all due respect, Your Honor, is not the world we live in. The world we live in, taking into account what has happened in this past year. We cannot simply say, whew, we made it and it's over. We always have to be ready for the next COVID. We always have to be ready for how do we cope with this enormous backlog of cases that has been building up. We can't simply say, we're going to go to phase 3 and phase 2 and phase 1 and then we'll be done and it'll be back to normal. You can't